What's going on, everyone? So the San Antonio Spurs are currently sitting at 3-10. They are on an 8-game losing streak and 15th in the Western Conference. They're very likely going to be one of the teams up there for another high draft pick this year. But San Antonio still has a ton to be excited for, have a ton to just for the future wise to just get pumped for, and that is in the name of a Victor Wembanyama. I mean, the guy has looked as good as advertised at times. He's had his hiccups, he's had his blunders, he's had his struggles, but the guy has just been fantastic in so many ways, especially defensively. The guy already looks like an absolute elite defensive player. And so far through 12 games, he's averaging 30 minutes. He's shooting 43.6% from the field. He's shooting 38% from three, which isn't great, but the ability to shoot it and the confidence to shoot it, right? He's not afraid to shoot, which is good. And I imagine over time that percentage will pick up. 2-point range, he's 51.5%, which is good. Good free throw shooter also at 77.1%. He's averaging 19 points, 9 rebounds, 2.3 assists, and 1 steal, 1.1 steals, and 2.2 blocks per game. Guy is absolutely getting after it. And San Antonio is in the right direction. They just got to stay the course. You got your franchise cornerstone. You got some nice little pieces that you could use for trades, because there are some questions with how they pair with Victor Wembanyama. Just seem to kind of like completely forget he's out there at times and kind of look him off. There's things that this team really has to work on, especially like Keldon Johnson, as well as Devin Vassell. These two guys got to develop more into the playmakers. So at some point, does San Antonio look to move off of one or maybe even both of them? It's a real question. But again, San Antonio is heading in the right direction. I fully believe in their organization. They have shown time and time again that they just need the right piece, and then they can become a real competitor for the long haul. But San Antonio has the possibility of kind of expediting this rebuild in the form of Zach Lavine. So Zach Lavine had his destinations that he would prefer, and San Antonio was like one of those teams that kind of keep an eye on. He has a relationship with Pop. He would love to play with Pop after spending his time in the Olympics. But question is, one, does Zach Lavine would Zach really want that, right? Like, you would imagine he'd want to be on a contending team. If he was like 24, 25, sure. Like, I completely understand that, because he'd be young enough to kind of fit the timeline. But at 28, by the time San Antonio is like a real contender, then Zach Lavine is probably 32, 33, right? Like, it's probably going to take San Antonio 3 to 5 years to really kind of get to contention status, right? Because they're still very bad. And it's going to take a little while for Victor to kind of get into his grown man body, kind of develop into the star that he's projected to be, or anything close to that. And yeah, like having Zach Lavine would be nice right now, but I don't think that makes a lot of sense for Zach, right? Is he really going to be willing to ride it out in San Antonio for 5 years? I mean, his contract would be over by the time San Antonio is probably good enough to really contend. And even if they do kind of, okay, let's go get Zach Lavine, now let's kind of expedite that. I don't think Zach Lavine makes a lot of sense for San Antonio, right? Zach Lavine is a very good player. Very good player. But where does he rank? Like, he's not a superstar, right? Like, if this was like Luka or something, or like Jaylen Brown or Jason Tatum or something, then yeah, absolutely. Push chips to the table, trade everybody but Victor Wembanyama. But Zach Lavine, like, how much better does he make the Spurs, right? Like, what is he, a top 25, 30 player, if that? He's definitely not a top 10. He's not a top 15. I don't think he's a top 20. Maybe you can make an argument for the top like 25 to 30, but I also could maybe make an argument otherwise, right? Like, he's a very good scorer. When he is on, is up there with the best of them. The guy is just absolute money when he's on. But he can be very inconsistent at times. There's questions about his attitude. I just don't know if he would be and make the most sense for the Spurs. Also, your problem with the Spurs currently is Victor Wembanyama kind of being left out of the offense at times, right? And Zach Lavine is a guy that likes volume, right? He's a guy that likes to get shots up. And so does that become an issue, right? Like, does that, like, yeah, it's always good to have like that big little. And Zach Lavine at 6'5", he's crazy hyper athlete. He's got a 6'8" wingspan, but he's not a good defender by any stretch of the imagination. And does San Antonio really want to pay him $40 million a year? He's not a $40 million a year player, at least in my opinion. Maybe some people think otherwise, but to me, like, if you're making that kind of money, you are a star. Like, he's not a guy that completely can impact and change the landscape for a team. I do think in the right situation he can, right? Like, if he went to a team like Miami, or he went to a team like the Lakers, or, some of these other teams that are more well equipped to where his skill set and what he does best, those teams need badly, then yeah, I do think he can make an impact. I still don't think he's worth $40 million, but I can understand a team like Miami or like the Lakers kind of making a push for Zach Lavine. Even the Sixers, I don't really think it makes sense for the Sixers to make a push for Zach Lavine, but it sounds like something they would do where, when you're talking about the Spurs like that free-flowing, yes, like a guy can go score, but don't want too much isolation, right? Like, you want to also keep Victor happy. Do you really want a guy that's taking 20 shots a game and, is not a great playmaker? I mean, he can get you assists from time to time, right? He can get you anywhere from 3 to 4 assists a game. He has a career average of 4 assists, but he's kind of just doing that in the flow of him looking to score. Right? It's like he's getting trapped and kicks it out and boom, a guy hits a shot. Or, he's driving, it's just like an easy dump pass or whatever, right? Like, don't get me wrong, he would be helpful. Like, I think he'd be very good, but is he the piece that like, that's the move that kind of starts the expedition of the rebuild? I don't. Again, I think San Antonio is better just kind of staying the course, sticking with the guys that you have, kind of over the next like 2 years or so, kind of whittling out like, okay, who are the guys we want long term and who are the guys that we need to start unloading, right? You're probably going to get another really good draft pick this year. Say you go get another top 5 pick, some really good talent in this year's draft, right? You go get that other guy. So now you have Victor and whomever that other guy is in this year's draft. And then you add them that you already have established, and then you start whittling out, okay, what guys are going to be here long term? What guys are going to be here for the long haul? What guys do we look to trade, right? Is it, a Vassell? Is it whatever, right? Is it a Johnson? However you figure that out. But I don't think Zach Lavine is the right guy to go and make a push to get, right? Because you'd have to give up a bunch of salary. Now, again, the Spurs do have ways to get him if they want. They have picks stuff. But are you really, like, you're definitely not trading this year's pick, right? You want to do everything you can to keep this year's pick because it's probably going to be a very good pick. Although if you get Zach Lavine, do you start winning more games than otherwise? Which also kind of leads me to the argument of like, hey, we shouldn't trade for Zach Lavine because, like, why win? Like, Zach Lavine could probably help us win some games that we wouldn't have won otherwise, and we should just stick the course of the rebuild. But if you wanted to, like, you got, like, Graham that you could trade if you want to kind of just keep the youth guys, right? A Doug McDermott to kind of fill salaries, like guys like that. And then maybe you are unloading, like, a Vassell, or you're unloading a Keldon Johnson or something, right? Like, I would want to keep Sohan, right? Because he's been really good for them, and he's kind of like that, like, where does he fit, but he's so good for them that, like, you got to keep him type thing. But I understand the allure of, like, the pairing of, like, a Zach Lavine and Victor Wembanyama, right? Because, like, like, if Victor kind of becomes who we think he's going to become, or even close to that, then having a hyper athletic scoring just guard forward, I think would be very important for them, right? A guy that can kind of take some pressure, apply rim pressure on the other end, score in a vacuum. Like, I do think that helps. But Zach Lavine, with just his injury history, and he is very reliant on his athleticism. Like, by the time you're where you need to be, how good is he for one? What does his injuries look like for two? Is he still on the roster at that point? Right? Like, does he just get sick of it and end up wanting? I could see this ending badly. I don't believe for a second San Antonio is going to entertain the idea of going and getting to Zach Lavine. I just don't. They didn't entertain the idea of like maybe making a push for a Damian Lillard or many of these other stars you hear about. Like, San Antonio has a clear direction. They have an idea and a goal in which they want to achieve, and they want to build around Victor. Again, if the right star were to become available and it made sense, then yeah, I could see them maybe going and doing that. I could maybe see them going and making the push. But again, it would have to be the right star, right? It would have to be somebody that's still very young, like I said, like a Luka or something. Which even that, I love Luka, but there's concerns of just how ball dominant he is. But like, and then even like, I almost feel like if you were gonna wait, if you wanted a guy like Zach Lavine, right, you're almost better off waiting and trying to make a push for a guy like a Donovan Mitchell or something, assuming he wanted to come. I just think Donovan Mitchell is a better player, and just more impactful, right? But I just, I think San Antonio, it's in their best interest. Just stay the course. Stay out of the noise. Let Lavine go wherever he wants to go, but it better not beat San Antonio, right? And if you're a San Antonio fan, I don't even know why you would want him. Again, he's making $40 million a year. Like, yeah, you have all this cap space and stuff like that, but I just think that could be spent better places. Like, you're almost better off like waiting and riding it out and then making that big push at some point when the right guy becomes available. I mean, every year there's like 2 or 3 stars that want a change of scenery. So it's not like, oh no, we missed out on Zach Lavine, like that's it. No, like you'll have plenty of other options as time goes on. Some point, somebody else will become available. That'll make sense. But anyway, as always, this is a discussion, so I pass the question on to you. Let me know your thoughts and opinions down in the comments below. What do you think? Do you like the idea of like Zach Lavine paired up with Victor Wembanyama? Do you think San Antonio should do it? Do you think no, San Antonio should stay as far away from Zach Lavine as possible? Again, however you feel, whatever your thoughts are, love to hear it. Let me know down in the comments below. That being said, if you haven't liked this video, hit that like button. Helps me out a lot. Lets me know you enjoy these types of videos, and I truly appreciate it. If you're not subscribed to the channel, hit that subscribe button. Turn on the bell notifications. I appreciate y'all. See you in the next one. Thank you.